I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian, and welcome to the Sidebar, a weekly show on the community, arts, culture, and more. Today, we're very pleased to be talking with artist Brantley Ellzey, so stay with us for a conversation with Brantley. Brantley, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Eric. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, you've got a show in Crosstown right now. We are coming up, January 25th?
That's right.
Ends. We should have done this in the fall, but anyway, it is what it is.
Better late than never. Go out with a bang. It opened on the 10th of October, and it closes on January 25th. It's called Reflection, Ritual Refuge.
Yeah.
And it's the entire second floor of Crosstown. So it's the three main galleries, and I actually did a little experimental film as well.
And it's, I've seen it. I think I walked through it right after it opened, but sometime in the fall. And it's amazing. It's very cool. It is so interesting. People should go before it closes on January 25th. And it is meticulous. I lack the vocabulary to do a justice to it, but it is so interesting and different than things I've seen. Not that I've been to that many openings around, but I do like going to museums and I like going to galleries and I like that kind of thing. It is also, the scale of it is fascinating because the amount of detail, there are these rolled magazines that are then shaped into things, and it's a lot. It seems like.
Yeah, it is. It is. When I was approaching the show with a little bit of panic, I have to admit, because it is a big space, but it also presented this unique opportunity. I'm known primarily for the rolled paper pieces, as you mentioned, but by having this big space, I was able to showcase other aspects of my practice, and that was really challenging, but very welcome.
Yeah,
it forced me to expand my thinking about my life and my practice and how they relate to one another. So the result of that, I think, is a very, very personal show. That I'm very proud of.
It was, I may have misunderstood, was much or some of the art done for this show specifically, or is it, how do you work in that sense? Are you always moving towards a show? Are you just kind of doing what you like to do and I have enough for a show, or am I completely off track?
Well, no, you're absolutely right. In the case of this show, I worked on it for a little over a year exclusively. And it was, the reward would be great, I knew, if I could pull it off. And, of course, the threat of public humiliation was the driving force. But a lot of my practice in the past has been commission-based. So it has had a bit more of a relaxed pace. I've participated in shows out of town. But this show really commanded my full attention. And what you're seeing, everything in the show was done specifically for this show.
You have a history with Crosstown, right?
I do. I had my studio was on Cleveland for about 10 years, and I arrived just when Crosstown was still in the planning stages. Yeah. And so over the course of my tenure on Cleveland, I got to see the entire project unfold, and I was there until it was completed, and then I moved. Yeah. As is the case sometimes. One of the downsides of development is that sometimes your rent goes up.
Sure. There is that.
It went up, and I decided, well, as much as I hated to, because I absolutely love Crosstown, that I needed to relocate. Yeah. So I got a new studio, which I'm still in at Summer and Baltic. But I had done a show in 2016. Prior to the building being completed, I was in their Cleveland space. And thematically, that show was conceived of at a time when we were in a similar situation of political upheaval, if you remember. It was Trump running against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And that show, as a response, it was done in October prior to the election cycle. And I decided to confront the anxiety that everyone was feeling by doing a very optimistic and upbeat, happy show. It was called Sweet. And it was done completely out of construction paper. It was candy. It was very optimistic. Well, 9 years later at this point, I was conceiving of this show, and a similar situation where we were in the throes of a lot of political, anxiety, sure, discord. And at the same time, the rise of technology, I think, is anxiety inducing for a lot of us. And The difference being, of course, this show was going to debut after the election. So it evolved over the course of working on it. Certain themes remained through the show, and certain things were added to respond to the current moment.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, the themes of the show are reflection, ritual, refuge. And what I found when I was having conversations with people, how we deal with stress, how we deal with anxiety. In a lot of those conversations, we talked about other instances in our lives where we had been confronted with really, really major issues. For me, as a young man, it was the AIDS crisis, which, of course, shaped much of my thinking as a 20, 30, 40-year-old person. And much of my response to that is shown in this show, in the sense that I found that when I'm in times of stress, I tend to reflect on things, my past. Other times when I've been challenged, other times when I felt comfort, people who have inspired me. And so that was the driver for the word reflection.
Yeah.
And you'll see in the, especially in the rolled paper compositions, there is this looking back. The pieces are dedicated to people that inspired me, encouraged me. It's primarily my youth and my childhood. That is not nostalgia in the sense that I want to go back to that world. I want to make that clear because I'm very aware that, I lived in a little bubble in Osceola, Arkansas, as far as, my life. But I was not unaware of the major issues of my childhood. Racial equality, women's equality, the Vietnam War. These were major issues.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes in today's world, we lose sight of the fact that, there have always been challenging times. And,
I have somebody gave it to me at one point. It's the cover of the New York Times from my birthday. And it is a little bit, it's kind of in my office.
That's 1985?
That was
right?
68.
Right?
Yeah, that was 68, February 68. And,
oh gosh, you look so much younger than me.
And it is a little bit sort of a reset because you look at everything that was going on in terms of the Cold War, in terms of Vietnam, in terms of, like the whole massive, there was a big vote that day on housing equity and how now it banned some blocking of house sales and rentals to Black people, but left in place most of it. But it was celebrated because a little bit of it came out. Like just all this stuff that you're like, oh, wow. There wasn't this perfect time that we look back at. That's not to take away from the stress and so on today. I'm curious for you when you talk about that stress and the anxiety, is the production, for lack of a better word, the creation of the art, is it cathartic for you?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
And that's where the second word comes in. I tend to be a very organized person. I'm a list maker. And in thinking of an overarching theme to tie all of the different things I do artistically together, I realize there is this ritual behind a lot of my life. Obviously, the rolling paper is very ritualistic. Yeah. And when I perform that ritual, when I'm engaged in the actual rolling of the paper, it is a meditation. It allows me to think about the project, think about the materials very closely. There's a rhythm that comes. It's like any repetitive task, knitting or painting for that matter. It's combining a lot of small steps to wind up with a finished product. And another aspect of the past that I have to mention, the piece is in the rolled paper section, and it's called Spiral Architectures. One of the reasons why I'm so regimented, I guess, is that my first career was as an architect. And I practiced. Yeah,
yes,
I went to architecture school.
There we
exactly.
go. There we go. Yes.
Went to architecture school, but I also majored in theater. So I've always had these two kind of
all comes
things. Yeah, exactly. Tying me, but it did produce in me this sort of discipline about art making. But I wanted to touch on. I mentioned I think that the pieces are dedicated to various people from my past. And, a couple of my earliest artistic memories, my earliest memories of art, are directly tied to the rolled paper that I work on. One is when I was a very small child, a woman took care of me, as was kind of the tradition back then, an African-American woman. And I would visit her house although it's a bit generous to call it a house because it really was very, very, very humble. But on the interior, she had covered all of the walls with pages from magazines.
Yeah.
And this was done, I'm sure, to insulate this, again, very humble house. But for a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, it was a magic place. It was like walking into this sort of wonderland because it was so different from my house. And she was so wonderful and so artistic in a very, very organic and natural way. The rolled paper came, there was another woman, and I'm from Osceola, Arkansas, which is about 50 miles upriver from Memphis. There was a woman in my town who did craft projects with rolled paper. And I remember seeing, I think it was a garbage can, and it was surrounded by rolled paper. And you know, when you're a kid, it's bright, it's colorful. And I remember just thinking it was the most beautiful thing. And my mom surprised me with one of those as Christmas or birthday present. It became a very cherished object for me. And
in the process with the rolling, which is, people do need to go and see it, and it's obviously very meticulous. You've been doing this for a while, but I mean, I have just dumb questions, but looking at it, and the architecture thing makes sense, and everything you just said adds into this, because the carefulness and the meticulous way that each piece is put together, and these rolls. One dumb question, and I'll have a few.
There are no dumb questions.
Are you doing this on a rod of some sort? Are you just that good with the paper? Like, because I'm just like, there's some part of my brain, I don't mean this in a bad way. I'm like, there are literally no flaws in this. It's amazingly, meticulous in the way all the rolls are. And it's a little hypnotic. You kind of lose yourself in the structures when you're going through and looking at all these pieces.
That's nice to hear. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you just do.
Well, the evolution of that, there's a clear thread that runs really from my childhood up until the show you're seeing. I was practicing architecture, as I mentioned, and I did a lot of churches where I was designing not only the building, but also some furnishings, altars, communion tables, those sorts of things. And I've always admired polymaths. It's what I've always wanted to be. And so thankfully in Memphis, I've been able to do that. I've designed sets. I've done store windows. I love stretching myself creatively. And when I was designing furniture, I started designing furniture of my own. And I began thinking about rolled paper as a sort of marquetry for wooden furniture, covering tabletops or maybe the front of cabinets. And I did experimented with rolling a few pages. Yeah. I did some drawings. It was never realized, the furnishings. It's still on my to-do list. But I was invited to be in an art show. And at the time, I was still working full-time in architecture. And I thought, well, I can do a drawing of a house or a model, something expected. But then I started thinking about the rolled paper, and maybe I should revisit that. And what occurred to me, and this has been the underlying sort of theoretical aspect of the rolled paper work that I do, was that when I was rolling the paper, I was encasing this information. So I wasn't only creating this colorful module, I was actually archiving a period of history. Yeah. And so the very first piece I did, the theme of the show was shelter. And I rolled up a Martha Stewart Living magazine, actually 2. And I just presented the odd pages in one column and the even pages in another. I submitted it. I wasn't here for the opening. I got back and the woman who purchased it called me, Ellen Horniak. I'll give Ellen a shout out. She was she was the first person that bought a rolled paper piece. And she invited me over because she said, I like for artists to see where I've placed their piece. And unbeknownst to me, she had invited about 50 people to her house. And there was this incredibly positive response. I know. It was great. I'm very grateful. And, I went home and I told my husband, Jim, I said, you're not going to believe it. I thought this was a simple glass of wine, but it became this art reception thanks to Ellen. And that really inspired me to pursue it. And the unique thing I think that sets my paperwork apart is that the selection of the paper is very intentional. I get a lot of people say, "Oh, I have a stack of magazines. Would you like them?" Well, no, because magazines are very heavy. They become, you can drown in magazines. But the printed media is chosen specifically for a piece. And it's one of the reasons why I tend to get a lot of commissions with corporations and individuals. They give me the paper. And then there's this back and forth that I think harkens back to my architecture career. Creating something with someone else.
I want to come back to a bunch of what you just talked about. I want to remind everyone that we're here with Brantley Ellzey, artist. His exhibit has been from October through January 25th. You've also got an artist talk and tour coming up this Saturday, which would be, what would this Saturday be roughly?
The 17th.
17th, thank you.
At 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock in Crosstown.
In Crosstown, I will walk visitors through the show and talk about it.
Okay. And we're going to come back with Brantley in just a second. But let me remind everyone, this is The Sidebar. I'm Eric Barnes. The Sidebar airs on WYXR 91.7 every Thursday at 11:30. Focused on the community, arts, culture, everything in between. It's not just a radio show, though. It's one of many podcasts we do at the Daily Memphian, including our morning podcast, the AMDM, with Mary Casciola and Natalie Van Gundy, and a lot of the staff reporters that you read, you get to hear from in the AMDM. We also have the Memphis Grizzlies podcast with Drew Hill and Chris Harrington. And we have our food podcast, Soundbites, with Holly Whitfield. Soundbites also airs on WYXR every Thursday at 11 and is, of course, available as a podcast. We do produce the podcast version of Behind the Headlines, the TV show we do with the good folks over at WKNO every week, going into our 16th year. Is it 16? It's our 16th year. Ooh, boy. Wow. 750 plus shows. I think we did the math. I'm looking at Natalie. It's a lot of shows. Although Calkins just finished 20 years of 5-day-a-week radio, so I should stop whining. Okay. Now he says it's not the same. Okay. That's good. Hopefully Jeff's not listening. You can also get the WYXR shows at WYXR.org or on the WYXR app, including all the shows that WYXR does. The talk shows, the archives of the music shows. So all that's available. Our podcasts are available too. They're on the Daily Memphian site, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Soon there'll be video podcasts sometime. We're sitting in our under construction, it's being assembled, our studio where we're now recording, but we'll soon have video on those. We'll talk more about that when that launches later, probably in February. WYXR is nonprofit, listener-supported radio. So if you're not a supporter or a member, do consider becoming one. You can go to the website. You can do a one-off donation. If you become a member, you can get all kinds of benefits. And if you're not a paid subscriber to the Daily Memphian, do consider becoming one. We are the largest newsroom in the region. Subscriptions pay for about half of what we do, advertising, events, another third of it, and actually donations, because we too are a nonprofit, because it's a difficult business, but it does support almost 40 journalists in the area. Recently on the Sidebar, we had the new CEO of Baron von Opperbeen. They're moving towards an early March opening of the first section of what they're doing down on Mud Island. So you can go just Google, search for Baron von Opperbeen and get tickets are actually already on sale. And coming up soon, we've got the head of Memphis Youth Symphony. Behind the headlines this week, we've got retiring Chief Defender Chief Aluko. That'll be a great conversation. And we recently had Ramesh Akbari, the Senate Minority Leader at the State Senate, as well as Shante Avant, the head of the County Commission. It was a great conversation about all things going on. We also recently did a show on immigration rights, and things that are going on in that space. Last bit of housekeeping before we get back to Brantley. Our Women in Business Seminar is coming up February 26th at the Botanic Garden. That'll be at 3:30. You do have to get tickets. Just go to Eventbrite, search for Daily Memphian, or go to the Daily Memphian site, and in the navigation, you can choose seminars. We'll have, we think 3 women on the panel right now. We've got Gina Neely confirmed, and we'll have others that I can't quite confirm or announce unless Natalie has walked back in the door and tells me I can. No, I can't. She shook her head at me. But we're here with Brantley. A couple things I want to talk about. It is an interesting thing to walk in. And again, I love art. I love museums. I know nothing about it really, so I'm just kind of, and it's almost freeing to not know that much about it, right? It's like, I love music. I can't play a note of music. Couldn't paint a thing, couldn't build a thing. So it's sort of, it's a naive experience that I enjoy. And to go into a gallery or something like that. So I'm looking around at these structures and I'm like, oh, wow. I mean, the meticulous thing. And then as you get closer to them, you do realize there's purpose. And I probably assumed, these are just random pages. You know what I mean? And that also speaks to the sort of scale of what you've done, and that you really kind of want to spend some time, because again, you can be sort of overwhelmed and impressed, for lack of a better word, by the structures and and the shapes, but then you get closer. And then there's the encyclopedia thing, which is not rolled, but it's a kind of variation on that experience, right?
It's a combination of 2D imagery and rolled paper. And you mentioned scale, and that's a big part of this show. And because I worked on it for so long, I was able to visit the space. So the space informed the pieces as the pieces inform the space. They're not custom designed for the space, but they're definitely done with the space in a very intentional way. Yeah. You may have remembered the diary piece, which fills up the wall at the very end of the space. And a lot of the work I do requires a great deal of sort of planning and pre-work. I do sketches, and then I draw everything mechanically. I draw everything in very precise measured drawings. There's a lot of calculations involved. I have to know how many rolled pages will fit in a particular piece, how to express the theme with the rolled paper. In the case of the diary piece, I wanted to keep it extremely abstract, so it's simply black rolled pages. Yeah. And it's every roll represents a day that I have been alive. And that piece was really thinking about my age in the context of dealing with these issues. You know, when you're younger, you have this feeling that you'll outlive any problems you're faced with, right? But as you get older, you think, wow, I may not see the end of this period of history. So that's a meditation on that. And that was a very challenging piece. You mentioned the meditative quality. Rolling over 27,000 black construction paper pieces of paper. I really thought about my life. And one of the inspirations for that, actually, I had seen a viral clip where a guy was explaining exactly how much $1 billion is. And he was saying, we've lost the ability to perceive of that quantity. And so he did this explanation with grains of rice, where he compared 1 million grains of rice to 1 billion grains of rice in a way. And so I thought, wow, how can I do that with rolled paper? And I thought of books and different, and then I realized, well, I didn't want to make those selections because I wanted it to be about everybody, not just about me. So you are 6 years younger than I am. Yeah. So you can look at it and say, oh, wow, I started these panels.
I'm sure I did. Actually, I probably counted because I'm very conscious of my age right now.
And that is based on, there are 76 individual panels because that's the average lifespan of a white man in Tennessee. I'm a little optimistic because my dad is 103.
Oh, wow.
And that's still amazing. Fully functional and very physically fit. So I'm hoping to add some, and extremely artistic.
Yeah.
I have to add that. My father is a very natural artist. He brings artistry to, and I think that is one of the explanations for his longevity. He has a very unique way of seeing the world.
Can I ask you again I'm always curious how people work. Are you a person, are you working in silence? Are you listening to music? Do you have a podcast on? Do you kind of rotate based on your mood? I mean, is there, are the lights super bright and it's very much like a construction site, or is it a kind of a moodier place? Or again, it might be all those things depending on the time of day or week.
Yeah, I don't think I actually answered your first question. I roll the paper on dowels.
You do on
wooden
dowels.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I release them, so they are hollow. They're not filled with anything, but that accounts for the precision.
Yeah.
And the fact that I've been doing it for so long that it's easy for me to do. As far as my work style, I keep regular hours. Again, I have a studio at Summer and Baltic. I prefer to work away from home. Yeah. Away from distraction. I find music too distracting, usually. I love to dance. I really get into music.
So it kind of takes you off task.
Playing, I kind of get distracted by it. Yeah. But I do like sound. So I'll watch, I'll have old movies playing. I'll have podcasts playing. It's mainly the human voice in the background. Yep. And I tend to be a gregarious person. So one of the challenges of having an art practice is the solitude. Yeah. And so having that sound in the background. But I'm pretty regimented, I would say, in my work style. There's not a lot of variation. I plan what I'm going to do. Usually I'll plan my week, and then in the morning I'll plan my day. Based on what I got accomplished the previous day. It's pretty boring, but I find that I can get a lot done. In the case of this show, I actually brought things home because I was putting in 18-hour days, 7 days a week, trying to get everything finished. So
I would think, again, back to the scale. We got 3 minutes left here, or 3.5 minutes left. What next?
I wanted, before we leave, I wanted to let everyone know that the show includes more than the rolled paper.
Oh, yeah,
there
please
are
do.
also
Yes.
There's my first experimental film. I want to give a shout out to Laura Jean Hocking and Alex Green and Chris McCoy, who collaborated with me on it and taught me so much. A couple of my social media exercises are included in the show. I do this thing called Things I Find at My Studio, which is an ongoing photography project where I'm archiving bizarre things that I find at the corner of Summer and Baltic in an attempt to record a neighborhood pre-gentrified. So I feel like the objects really tell a story. There's another photographic exercise with my husband, Jim. There's another gallery that's The Love List, which I did during the pandemic. That was a writing and photography exercise where I tried to present something positive every day to sort of, it was pre-pandemic when I started and took on a whole new meaning when the pandemic started. Yeah. There's a section on, I created this thing called the Memphis Masonry Preservation Society. I'm trying to preserve our wonderful bungalows from being haphazardly painted. I did found objects in the tradition of Marcel Duchamp, where I took things that are already rolled and made sculptures out of them. There's a billboard.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
I have a billboard outside of my studio, and I conceived of a project to fill the billboard, and so I thought it would be a good idea to put it in the show. So there's a lot to see. There's the bigness of the space has allowed me to explore a lot of different materials, a lot of different scales. There's an installation in the lobby that's all reflective, and the giant columns, if you've been in the concourse, the massive concrete columns, those immediately struck me as being the same form as the rolled paper. Yeah. So I couldn't leave them untreated, and I wound up rolling them in the installation. So there's a lot to see. I hope that, and this is where the third theme comes in, my work and my practice provides a real refuge for me. And I'm hoping that the show provides a refuge to everyone that comes to see it. We are living in some really, really stressful times. And I feel like if you can come to the concourse, come to Crosstown Arts, visit my show, and just let yourself forget about the world for a while. And I hope it encourages people to also think back and look at the past and the present, find the positivity in today and yesterday.
Yeah. I'll say, I mean, I experienced it that way. I mean, sometimes you go into, because we talked a lot about the themes and the difficulties, but it is also an escape. And there's parts that are funny. And so I don't want to leave people with this impression that it's a real journey through all these things. And then just the sheer appreciation of the aesthetics of it before you maybe look into the meaning of it it works on all those levels for me, at least. And I think that was very, very, very cool. So,
and that's another thing about having the space to do this. There are a lot of contrasts. Yeah. You know, there is the gallery with a lot of nostalgia, and then I couldn't ignore the present day. So there's a smaller gallery where I comment on what I'm feeling right now, and they stand in stark contrast to one another. I'm sure you noticed that. And then, but I think it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is.
You know, again, art is a thing you make primarily in solitude.
Yeah.
And you hope that it lands. You hope that people respond to it. And I've gotten such incredibly positive feedback.
I'm sure.
And I'm so encouraged by it. And I have a couple, in answer to your question, I have a list of pieces I want to do next that I was inspired by. There's a book project I'm very interested in pursuing. I've got a lot on. Yeah, I've got a lot.
Well, we'll get you back hopefully sooner than later.
Oh, good.
And talk about that or whenever you're ready in your next project. Again, I want to remind everyone that the exhibit closes in a couple weeks, 25th.
Let me just say one more thing.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I couldn't end this without extending huge thanks to Stacy Wright, Tori Newt, and everyone at Crosstown Arts.
Yeah.
They have been amazing to work with. And also a big shout out to Jim Renfro, my husband, who had a rather hellish year when I was preparing for this. And the show is dedicated to him. So I want to thank those people.
That's great. Yeah. And again, on the 17th at 1 p.m. at Crosstown in the studio, you're doing an artist talk and tour.
Yes.
Again, we've been here with Brantley Ellzey. You can go on Instagram. Your Instagram has a lot of photos and gives people a feel for what's going on. So people can go there. We'll get you back because I could have a whole other conversation about all kinds of things about art. But thank you very much for being here.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys very much for listening. That's all the time we have this week, though. If you missed any of the show, go to wherever you get your podcasts, go to the WMPN or WYXR, and you can get the full episode. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.